Well, I've returned to the Colorado Center in order to witness a key part of the work of the center, which looks into this very question. Now, John, could the Shroud of Turin itself have actually wrapped a human body?
That, of course, is a question for science, and at our center we have looked at that because that's a key point for authenticity. But our approach is to look at the image. You've got the body image and the blood stains. So the first step in our process was to create a three-dimensional body, an accurate three-dimensional body. And the way we did this was to have a volunteer who was CAT scanned, and then the x-rays from the CAT scan in sequential slices were then cut out after being digitized and assembled to make this three-dimensional model. So this is actually from a real person laying in the attitude implied by the man of the shroud.
Right.
The second step was to make a cloth model of the shroud that we can use to evaluate the correlations that we would be looking for.
The markings and all the other details.
Yes. And we have here a cloth model on linen, and we've drawn to scale the body image that you see here. You can see the blood stains on the image.
So that blood stain is that one there?
Exactly.
Right. So John, what you're going to do now is to lay this cloth and wrap the body to see if the markings fit.
Yes. And we constructed this cloth drawing an image to scale to the actual shroud. Our criteria for laying this cloth out on the body consists of two parts. The first is that all the blood stains, such as we see on the shroud, all these blood stains must make natural contact with the body, because we know that these are actual blood from chemical analyses. The second criterion is that where the cloth naturally contacts the body, we want the image that we have here to also contact the body. Now, if we look carefully, first of all, you can see right here that this is where the tip of the nose is, and I think we can accommodate a slight adjustment where you see the tip of the nose to make that work. Okay, now, let's move down and check a few things. Well, here's the wound in the side. So now,
where a spear would have gone in.
Yes. Notice that that is a natural contact point on the body. So, if you'll allow me, what I'm going to do is to take this image of the hands and I'm going to pull it up to meet our second condition. And now we have the arms. If you want to come over here and feel, see the fingers?
Yeah, the fingers are directly correlating to the image.
Right, so you can feel that. And now you have the forearms. See how the forearm image? But now we've got to do something about this. So I'm going to pull the cloth up to this location just below the chin. I can't go any further because I have to have the tip of the nose making natural contact here. When we make the hands align properly, look now what happens to the blood stain at the bottom of the cloth.
That matches.
Roll it back.
It's exactly where a nail would have been of a crucified man.
Yeah, it's arguably where you would expect it to be.
That's amazing.
So things look very reasonable.
And where is this on the...
It's this right here, part of the bottom of the frontal image. Now, let me just roll back the cloth here just temporarily, and let's look at how the dorsal image with the feet, how that aligns. So I can just bring that up and I think you can see how nicely the dorsal feet
touches
align. You see that? Now what I'd like to do while we're at this point is to focus in on two blood stains. One is this trickle coming off the dorsal heel, and this blood doublet that is just off the frontal blood image. Let me show you where these are on the shroud so we don't lose track of where we are. The blood doublet is right here. It's just off the frontal blood stain that we see. Okay. Now the trickle of blood off the heel,
be up the other end.
we have to walk clear down here, and we see the
Right.
blood trickle here.
Okay.
Okay? Now those are the two blood stains I want to talk about.
All right.
What's interesting and noteworthy is that to place the cloth around the head of the body brings the two ends of the shroud together. Now let's examine this in more detail. So I'm going to put the cloth back, the
Okay.
top part. I'm going to bring up the bottom part like this. And when I do that, look what happens.
Oh, I see.
You see that dorsal trickle and the frontal doublet touch each other.
And that's how the doublets would have come about.
They just come together and kiss. This blood stain here is correlated and associated and has its origin in the blood trickle clear at the bottom of the feet. We know from our studies directly on the shroud in 1978 in Turin that the blood stains precede the body image. So what you're going to have to imagine then, if this is the work of a forger, is that this forger is going to put on the blood stains first, and then he's going to compose this magnificent body image by some technique around those blood stains, and moreover is going to have to put these blood stains in such a way that they work three-dimensionally around a cloth that touches the body. I can't put my mind around somebody being able to do that. Because I know
It's a huge difference. What you're saying is working, if you were a forger, on a two-dimensional object and trying to forge that.
Yes,
And when you take it three-dimensionally, it's a completely different
You
thing.
have to think of this three-dimensionally. If you think of this as just a two-dimensional image on cloth, you're going to miss these things.
Okay.
While we're on this kind of a subject, let me show you another thing. But we're going to have to go around to this side of the other side of the cloth. And I'd like to point out another interesting anomaly. Do you see the blood stain coming down the forearm?
Yes.
And then we have a blood anomaly coming off.
To the side here.
It's even away
It's off
from
the
the
side,
body.
yeah, it's away from the body, yeah.
Now let's see exactly where that is on the shroud. So we'll go up here to our shroud model. We're looking at this location. You've got the blood coming off the frontal image, going off image, and we see sort of a double blood markings at that location. So now let's go back and re-examine what we're seeing here. Now, using our criterion that blood has to come directly from the body itself, we can apply that to this first blood stain here. That would mean that this cloth can't be the way it is here.
Right.
It must be tucked under. And evidently then, this is consistent with the blood as appears on the shroud image, as though the blood is coming from its wound
Down the forearm.
down the forearm. Finally, it just pools at the elbow, and the shroud has picked that up.
Okay. But what about this one here?
Yeah, now see, how do you apply that? Well, I think what happens is that when you tuck that in, you see how that, you tuck it in far enough, that little blood doublet comes up and contacts the other.
that.
So it's actually making contact with the body itself, but it's doing it through the intervening cloth that we see here.
And how would that have come to contact this bit here, the bottom of the elbow and where that other mark is?
Well, this brings a very important point that you just mentioned, because evidently, to make sense of what we see on the shroud, the sides of the cloth must have been tucked close to the body. It just happens, we just happen to be able to see it in the blood. And so...
And that would have happened when the body was wrapped
Yes.
more tightly.
And I think we can, on the basis of that, infer that that was the case for the rest of the body in order to make sense of the shroud. So if Keith, would you help me please? We're going to go ahead and tuck in the sides according to the inference that we've made from the blood stains that we see on the shroud.
So at the moment, this is how, if we imagine ourselves, X hundred years ago, wrapping a body that had been crucified, this is how the people would have gone about it.
Yes. At this point, we need to ask the question is, what is it that's holding the body together that we've already talked about with respect to the image itself, something being holding this body together? Well, there's clearly nothing here to do that we see at this point. So I'd like to venture with you a hypothesis that could explain all this. And to do that, let's look at the shroud. On the shroud, we see a side strip, as it is called in the shroud community, that runs the entire length of the cloth. Now, there's two things we know about this side strip. The first is that this side strip was an integral part of the main body of the shroud. And let me show you why that is the case. We need to go over here to another image. This is a transmitted image. It's a transmitted light image. It's an absorption image.
And the shroud is being held up.
In this case, the shroud is being held up. This was taken by Barry Schwartz, who was our photographer in 1978 during the scientific examination. And this photograph shows us many absorption bands that run along the width of the shroud. The important point is that these bands, which are in the main body of the shroud, propagate right across into the side strip, and you can actually see them.
So this side strip had to have been a part of this because the lines running across match.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So taking that piece of information, we're going to add to it one other piece, and that is, at the time of the radiocarbon sample taking, this piece of cloth was, when it was removed, actually cut through the seam that's running along that side strip. You see, it's possible that this is all it is just a seam, and that the cloth is still intact. But we learned from the radiocarbon sample taking that that's not the case. This seam has a structure that shows us that the side strip has been removed and then attached for some reason. Somebody at some point thought after this was attached that it was important enough to put it back onto the main body of the cloth. And that's what they did. I would like to hypothesize that what they did is they cut the side strip from the cloth. They needed something to hold the body together. They're improvising. They're putting this together.
Right.
And I think I would submit that's what they did. They simply cut this away, and they used that piece of cloth that they cut away from the length of the shroud to tie the entire body together.
Can you prove that?
Let's do it.
Okay.
We have here a cloth model of the side strip, which we can hold up to the shroud itself. But you can see that for all practical purposes,
it matches the length of the...
This cloth matches the entire length of the shroud. So we're using a reasonably good model.
Okay.
So we're now going to take the side strip and we're going to put it up to the feet to make sure that the bottom of the feet
is touching.
It has to, because there's blood there.
Of contact.
So it's got to be this way in the context of our notions here. And
so that's the bit that would have held the knees together,
yeah.
As you were saying.
See what this is doing? It's going to hold the legs together, which holds the knees, which is what we observe on the shroud. Now that we've held the arms in position, now we have this much cloth that we're just simply going to complete the tying, as we're going to have to, by going underneath the chin, bringing it up, and notice we have just enough cloth to do this. We just simply bring it like so, and we will just complete the tying process with a knot at this location.
I see. Okay.
And we have a wrapping for that I believe is consistent with all the features of the image on the shroud that we see.
So this answers my question about how the cloth is pulled up here.
Yes, the reason it's there is because when they tie it, that pulls the cloth up. Of course, that's before the image is formed, and then the image is formed from that configuration.
And the arms are held together and the knees are held together,
Correct.
and the feet have contact with the bottom, and hence the blood mark.
And hence the blood mark. And I think that all fits. Also, let me show you another thing. When we look here at the bottom of the chin, notice the disruption that occurs in the cloth. I think that we can see that echoed if we go over here to the negative image.
Okay.
We can see the hair on either side of the face, but when we get down to just the bottom of the chin, it looks like the hair, suddenly there's a disruption, at least to my eye, and we see it over here. I think there's also a disruption in the beard. There's something here.
Which is incongruous.
Yeah, there's a disruption of some nature that is ill-defined, and I would submit that that's
Right.
consistent with what we are inducing by folding on the cloth here.
I've heard all the evidence and you've run me through your work with the shroud on the body and it's been riveting, but what's your conclusion at the end of all of this?
Well, I think when we started this, the question was really dealing with ultimately around authenticity of this shroud. We had the a priori, the before possibility that we could disprove the authenticity of the shroud if we could demonstrate that this image is inconsistent with the way it would correlate with the three-dimensional body. What I believe we see here on the shroud is a consistency of that image and the bloodstains with how you would wrap a body as we see here. There's not much wiggle room here. There's not much latitude for slight variations. To my mind anyway, I think it has to be essentially the way you're seeing it here to explain what we see over here.